We've come down to the Waikato today to Riverdale Farm to meet Sonia Waddell, the pony Poppy. We've got Hayden and James as well, and we're getting to know the family behind the farm and also finding out a little bit about what you get up to here. So you guys are going to go for a little ride?
Yep.
Awesome.
Should we get a saddle on her? I grew up on Brookdale Stud down in the Taranaki. Very proud of my Taranaki roots. My grandfather and father were hugely involved with horses. I rode till I was 16, but it was probably more the horses that I was really passionate about rather than the actual riding. So I got more into the racing side of it. Worked in horse stables, I worked for Instonia Services, grooming overseas, did yearling preps. Even rode track work when I was 10.
Yeah.
After that, I was always too tall too tall and too heavy to be a jockey. The sport was probably something I always thought I would go down, but probably in my heart I always expected to come back to horses as well. That's my real love. I did a science degree. I was very much motivated by the fact that I wanted to be an equine vet, and again, sport got in the way.
So then your sporting achievements. I mean, representing New Zealand at national level in 3 different sports, that's insane.
Yeah, I guess sometimes I refer to myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. But I've been very, very privileged to be able to make a career in sport. It's been a wonderful life. I've travelled the world, been very much in charge of my own destiny.
Out of the cycling, rowing and the athletics, is there a real passion for you?
The rowing's the one that I got the most success in, obviously, so I have very fond memories of that. I think cycling was the one I was most suited to.
Oh, really?
And if I'd had the opportunity maybe to do that earlier in my life, I think that's probably where my strengths lay, interestingly enough. Athletics I just loved as a kid, but to be completely honest, I don't think I was ever going to be quite fast enough to achieve at the highest level in that sport. But the other 2 really suited me.
So you were saying when you were at the Olympics that sneaking down to have a little look at the equestrian bits as well, that horsey passion was still there?
Oh, absolutely. And at that stage I hadn't been around horses for quite a long time, so being there with them and the smell again, and it was wonderful. Wherever I was in the world, I would always be switched into watching the Melbourne Cup every November, and it was a huge passion. Well, Rob came on the scene in my life when I was about 20. Horses are not something that he has been involved with, but he grew up on a big farm in the King Country. When we set this up, he was incredibly supportive of what I wanted to do, and he really took it on. There, in the early days, he was out there mucking out boxes and feeding up, and he learnt how to pull a mane. He really did.
Multi-talented.
He's very multi-talented. He really did take it on. What gives me so much pleasure is just being able to expose them to all those things that were a really special part of my childhood. I think kids learn so much being on a farm and using their imagination and having animals to care for.
You were talking about your dad, obviously, who was former All Black. That's a sport in the family. But do you think a lot of what he sort of taught you is coming through now into what you do here?
Oh, 100%, yes, very much so. Dad's an incredible horseman. He's got a very good eye for a horse, and I think without knowing it, he was constantly teaching me when I was young.
One pretty special horse that we're going to have a look at here is a half-2 humidor, which is obviously one of your probably best graduates to have come out of the farm.
Yes.
How did you end up having a relationship with Jamara Bloodstock?
So I first met John and Mark Carter probably about 8-9 years ago now, and they had come down to the farm with Mark Baker to have a look at some of our weanlings. And about 2 weeks after that visit, John actually rang me and said, you know, we really liked your farm, we like what you do, could we send some mares and foals to you? I said absolutely, and about 2 weeks after that, 7 mares and foals turned up.
Oh wow.
So that was the start of our relationship with them.
Yep.
And now we look after most of their brood mares, look after the foals through to when they go to the consigners.
Okay.
But then a lot of theirs are actually retained for racing, so we'll keep them right through.
Was Humidor here himself?
Humidor was here.
Yep.
He arrived to us as a wee foal on his mum. He was weaned here, he did all his early handling here.
Seeing him racing and winning Group 1s in Australia, does that give you great satisfaction?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. It really is very special. I look at him now and I look at his eye and I still remember that wee horse we had here all that time ago. You know, personally I put a huge amount into the horses. It's not a job for me, it's a passion. And so when all that hard work or, you know, your philosophy of what you're trying to do comes to fruition, it's very rewarding, very special. Come on, boy, come on.
Do you feel like he's got the same spark about him that Humidor had?
Yeah, he has. Humidor was a really interesting foal. He was very quirky. He lacked quite a lot of confidence as a horse, but he had this very, very giving, generous nature that when he did trust, he would just lay his life down for you. This guy he's a lot more confident. He's incredibly confident. He's a very athletic horse, lovely mover. And I think what we enjoy here is when you get to follow them all the way through, you're really thinking about building an athlete. So you know they've had the best right from day dot.
And you'd know a lot about building an athlete.
Yeah, well, I've always wondered, I wondered at the start how much of the human sporting side translates to the equine side. But at the end of the day, I think most of it does.
Really?
Yeah, our minds. You're dealing with a mind, you're dealing with a growing body, hearts, lungs. A lot of the physiology is very similar.
Yeah.
So I think a huge amount of the basics do translate. She's been here on and off for probably 7 or 8 years now. Okay. So she's been away in Australia for a wee bit, and just come back to us again this season. She's in foal to shooting to win, due in about 3 weeks. So lovely big tummy on her. We're actually hoping for a filly this time round.
Something to keep the legacy going.
Yes, exactly. She's getting older now, so it'll be lovely to get a nice filly out of her. Yeah, so she's the star of the show at the moment.
Hey, how's it
going? Now, can I introduce you to my 2 daughters? This is Madeline, who prefers to be called Maddie.
Hi, Maddie. How are you?
And this is Sophie.
Hi, Sophie. How are you?
Now, Emily, you're just in time. The girls have just whipped up a batch of strawberry coconut ice, and I've put the kettle on. So, would you like a cup of tea?
I'd love a tea. Thank you. That's great. We haven't really touched on how you ended up here on this property in the Waikato. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, so initially we bought 25 acres next door, and very quickly the horses started to come back into it, and I began to do a little bit of agistment for Pencarrow stud. And one day I was talking to my neighbour across the fence, and he said that they were selling. And did we know anyone that might be interested in buying this farm, which is 50 acres? So Rob and I had a chat about it, jumped in the deep end. It was right in the middle of the recession, so it was a very scary time. But in saying that too, it probably was the only thing that allowed us to purchase it. So that was the start of Riverdale Farm. We have always had very good people around us. So for our sport, we've sought out the best coaches, the best at what they do. So my immediate thought was, I need to get the best and bring them in here and help me. So I rang Sir Patrick Hogan and Leon Casey, who obviously manages Pencarrow, and said, can you please come around and help me set up? I don't know what size paddocks I should have, where races should be, what infrastructure is important, and the two of them were absolutely incredible with their time and their advice. The business has evolved quite organically, I guess. I didn't set out initially to make it anything more than broodmares. I have a number of very loyal clients. The Whittle family, who are another Taranaki family, and Vern and Penny Curtis, who are from Auckland, have a number of their horses. Obviously Joe Mara Bloodstock are my main client and a huge part of what I do. I do a lot of work for Jen Campen as well.
Tell me a little bit about the future of Riverdale Farm. Is there something you want to tick off, or is there a long-term goal, or is it more just doing what you're doing?
That's a really good question, Emily. I've probably never really openly outlined what my goals for the farm are, but in my heart, I know that at some stage I want to start having my own band of broodmares, doing my own breeding, but then retain those foals through to racehorses. I love the fact that I can take a mare, take a foal in utero and take them right through to their athletic career, to look after their nutritional well-being, but also their mental well-being as well. It takes a lot to produce a really good athlete, and I love having control of that all the way through and being able to make a difference all the way through. So at some stage, I'll start with one broodmare and it will go from there.
When you talk about seeing these horses all the way through, does that mean training potentially as well?
Yes, it does, and not on a big scale. It would be just my own horses, I think, initially, but I would really love to see how I can apply what I've learnt through my own sporting background to horses.
And does Rob know about this yet?
No.
He does now.
He does now. I think the only person that probably knows about this is my dad. I've talked to Dad about it a little bit, and obviously that was something he did in his lifetime, and I'll take a lot of inspiration from that. Surprise, Rob.
Rodney, on Turn Me Loose, how was it that he came about being here?
We'd been following the horse for a long time, like everyone else, and we thought he was going to be sold to Australia, but we got an opportunity to buy him earlier in the year, and we had to grab it.
So Mike, can you take us through his race record?
He was a juvenile winner. He won the Guineas so dominantly, and then came back as a 4-year-old, winning the Emirates, the big mile race in Australia. It's hard to beat those horses at that game. And then came back in the autumn and won the Futurity at 1400 weight for Aidan. Ended up being the champion sprinter and champion miler of New Zealand.
Turn Me Me Loose in front. Stratum Star coming at him. Suavito flies home, but Turn Me Loose is too good.
Steve, how important is it getting those Group 1 wins in Australia?
Oh, very important, Aidan. It's, you know, if you have an established high profile in Australia, our main market, then everything flows on from that. You're not only through breeder support, but again at the yearling sales are well understood in the market.
And I guess when it comes to selling his progeny, at least you know that the Australians well know this horse, they know how good he was.
Yes, and I think also not only the Australian market, the international market realises just how strong the Australian racing is, and so therefore any horses that are established at the top level in Australia are internationally very highly regarded.
Tell us a little bit about his pedigree.
I think it would be fair to say last season was a little bit of a breakout season for Ifraj, particularly in Australasia, through of course the success of John Snow and Ginger Nuts. Prior to that, Turn Me Loose had become his first Group 1 winning colt, and he'd been, you know, very highly regarded as a stallion, but in the Northern Hemisphere he'd left champion fillies and colts, and she's out of a Danehill mare. Danehill needs no introduction here, of course. He's then out of a Sadler's Wells mare and out of a Shirley Heights mare, and that they're all breed-shaping stallions, and particularly that Sadler's Wells Shirley Heights cross has been very, very successful, and he's from a European family, closely related to a Group 1 winning 2-year-old in Europe, so yeah, very good family and genetic background. He's a very tidy horse himself, so he'll be able to tidy up mares, he'll be able to bring a good mind, a very, very sound horse. He's structurally very sound, he's got good bone, good feet, great mind, tremendous girth on him, and a very powerful walking horse. So that was one of the things I think that struck all of us when we first went to have a look at him. And those ingredients, you know, when you're selling yearlings that have those ingredients, then it's a lot easier, and they definitely sell better.
Rodney, how are breeders taking to him?
Oh look, we've had a huge response to him, Aidan. He's going to serve a really good book of mares. I'd say he'll be around to 140 to 150 mares for the season. So look, he's been well supported. The racing part of the horse was only the first part for Lindsay. He's 150% behind Turn Me Loose. They've retained 25% of the horse, and they're going to use their whole, you know, they'll send all their mares to him. They're not selling any of their noms or anything, and they've sent, I think there's 15 mares come over from Australia and New Zealand.
Too good to refuse, and Vanbrugh going stride for stride. Vanbrugh the outside puts his head in front now, and Vanbrugh starting to act clear in the Spring Champion Stakes.
Mike Vanbrugh, can you just take us through his race career?
Well, he kicked off in the best way possible. It was a debut winning 2-year-old at Randwick. Chris thought a bit of him, was looking to some of the black type 2-year-old races. He ran in the Pago, finished 5th, and then came back as a 3-year-old, and really was the dominant Sydney 3-year-old. He beat the older horses at a mile and came out, won the Gloaming, and then was a very dominant winner of the Group 1 Spring Champion Stakes, a race that Savabeel and Dundeel won. Trained on again and won at the Melbourne Carnival, defeating this year's Doncaster winner in it somewhat, and Tom Melbourne.
Vanbrugh at the 100 put his head in front of Tom Melbourne. Vanbrugh got a neck clear, and Vanbrugh just a bit too good.
Rodney, when did you become involved with this horse?
Oh, actually, I was having dinner at Mike Wallace's one night with Mick Flanagan, and Mick Flanagan had brought him as a yearling, so I was fairly passionate about the horse. Obviously, we'd seen him race and things like that, and I wasn't sure if there's an opportunity to buy into him. And after dinner, we'd had discussions, and there was an opportunity. So actually, Mike and I went over to view him in Sydney, and once again, he filled the eye. He's just a magnificent horse. So we've bought 55% of him. The other owners are Marybelle Stables in America. They're an IT company over there, so they'll be supporting the horse as well.
And what about him physically? Can you just describe him for us?
Look, he's a really, really well-made horse, very attractive, a really muscular animal with a good walk, but he's got a very strong head, big jowl. He's a really attractive horse, and that's why I think he was precocious, because he has got that physique, and he loved to run on top of the ground. We had to scratch him out of quite a few. It was very unlucky. We had to scratch him out of quite a few races because of bad ground, but he's a lovely type.
And Steve, can you just take us through his pedigree?
He's a son of the champion sire and broodmare sire in Costa del Lago. Again, a stallion that's was proven in our conditions here in Australasia, and then went to stud and became the great stallion that he is. He's out of a very good daughter of champion Miling, son of Danehill. The mare Soho Secret, she was group performed as a 3-year-old. She won 2 races in Sydney as a 2-year-old, so she had again that precocity to get up and run early. She's a daughter of the very good Centane mare Professional, who's left 4 stakes winners, 3 group winners. She's a top class broodmare, very special. And the next dam is a Group 2 winning 2-year-old daughter of Sir Tristram. So you've got a very high class family behind Vanbrugh.
Lighters on 1400, they're away.
Mike, can you tell us about Rageese as a racehorse?
Well, he was very talented, Aidan, hugely talented actually, and he was second in the Pago, and then running in the Sire's Produce where he ran second to Pride of Dubai. That really demonstrated to us what a high class horse he was to be performing at that level in Australia as a 2-year-old in Group 1 races.
100 left to go, Rageese drew away, he's a length in front, Rageese came away, and Rageese beat Arod by 3/4 of a length.
He came out as a 3-year-old and was transferred to Darren Weir actually, and Darren really got the horse going beautifully. He won first up with him, then he won at Black Type Company, and as a 4-year-old we saw him win at the Spring Carnival there at Flemington.
Well, it was funny, one day I got a phone call from Dad from his office in town saying, I think I might have found you a horse. So I shot over to have a look at him, and as you can see from the videos, it wasn't a hard decision to make. He's a magnificent sort of horse. He's got that bit of Sunday Silence about him. Obviously he's by Street Cry, but he's got the colouring of Sunday Silence, and he's a very, very attractive horse.
Steve, obviously Street Christ, some of the most coveted blood going around these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, particularly in Australasia when you have a champion race mare like Winks advertising him. But aside from Winks, he's left champions in the Northern Hemisphere like Zenyatta and co. And he's just a super international stallion, very, very successful both hemispheres. He really is a plus in the pedigree. And he's out of a De Gea mare, who was a very successful stallion, again a shuttle stallion that was successful in both hemispheres. His next dam, as Roddy mentioned before, is by Sunday Silence, who physically he's very similar in type and style. And then the next dam is a Danehill daughter of the champion race mare Emancipation. So again, it's a super family. There weren't many better than Emancipation, other than probably Winks maybe. But yeah, she was a great mare. So great family behind them.
So we bought 50% of him as a 3-year-old. Sheikh Khalifa bred him and raced him, and so we bought into him as a 3-year-old. So it's a 50% each ownership. Once again, it's great having people like the Sheikh involved in New Zealand racing, and he's really going to support. I think he's got 15 mares coming to the stallion.
How important has it been to find stallions early in their careers?
Look, we probably have not done it much before. Obviously this year we bought the 2 horses earlier on, and then had the opportunity to buy Turn Me Loose. So to have 3 stallions in one season wasn't ideal, but it's, we think all those 3 horses have got great credentials. It's all about opportunity, and if it arises through their career, then we try and buy them then. But a lot of the time it has to be when they retire.
These 3 new ones, how do they complement what you've got existing here on the roster?
Look, at the end of the day, we don't try and make them complement the roster. Every stallion is bought on his merits. When we go and buy a stallion, we want to have a stallion that we think will benefit the New Zealand industry and be a successful sire. So it's really about finding horses that we think will make stallions.
By just taking these opportunities, it's meaning though that there's a massive Windsor Park investment.
Yeah, I think since 2014 we've bought into 6 stallions. We've put a huge amount of investment in. We love the industry. It's been part of our family for a long time, and we're really excited about it. So, and you've got to have stallions. That's where we make our money. And if we don't have stallions, we don't have a stud. So we're really excited about the investments we've made in the last few years, and we're really looking forward to into the next few seasons.
I know Windsor Park Stud, Thorn Parker was a champion stallion here in New Zealand, but it seems that a big part of the philosophy here has been to stand those shuttle stallions that maybe haven't been owned here. This time it seems to be a mindset change.
It's not really a mindset change. We've got Charms Ferret this year. We stand stallions we believe that will make good stallions at stud. So it doesn't matter if they're coming from England, Ireland, wherever, from Australia, whether we own them, we don't own them. We want stallions here to give people the opportunity to have successful stallions. So we look at it a little bit different. We don't think it's a shuttle stallion, we think it's a stallion that will work in this country. And we've had the likes of Starway, Volksrad, Karpstad, as you said, Drawn Park, those horses are all from down here, but then we've had the likes of Monsieur and High Chaparral, Master Craftsman, so in Rip Van Winkle, these horses have come down as shuttle horses. So look, it doesn't matter what they are, it's shuttle or colonial, it's just if they'll work or not.
It seems to me you're bringing in those great genetics that you might have otherwise not had access to, but by having the 3 or the 6 new stallions that Rodney's spoken about in the last 3 or 4 years, you are giving surety to breeders that they can breed to them in the long term as well. Can you just explain, both sides of the coin?
I think what our first criteria really is around race performance and natural talent, Aidan, so we're particularly focused on that. If that opportunity arises in the Northern Hemisphere through the shuttle process, we would rather give ourselves the opportunity and the New Zealand breeding industry that opportunity and try and make something work for the shuttle process, because it's a very expensive process. It's not cheap to bring those stallions down here, so we can access not only world-class genetics but the best race performance globally, and horses like Monju and High Chaparral are a testament to that. And now you see, of course, through their success, their sons standing us up. We've got Tavistock, champion stallion here standing in New Zealand. If Monju had never come down here, then it's less likely that we'd be having Tavistock, and we all know what his contribution to the industry. It's very important that we can secure them here for the industry. In some ways you can't have your cake and eat it too. So you make the best of that opportunity that Roddy was referring to, and that's always been our philosophy. I remember Nelson saying it's better to have loved and lost than never have loved at all.
Rodney grasping these opportunities, it means now you've got 8 stallions standing at Windsor Park Stud. Is that roughly capacity?
8's a lot of horses, and luckily we've got a decent broodmare band ourselves, and we will support these horses heavily because we believe in them. We've got great backing with our clients supporting them. It's going to be a busy year, but an exciting time. We're really excited about the future of Windsor Park.
Now let's get off to Aidan for this week's edition of Kiwi Bred News.
Thanks, Emily. Leading this week's Kiwi Bred News, a small-time Waikato breeding operation has enjoyed massive success on one of Melbourne's premier race days. Matamata's Jason and Kelly Price and Kelly's brother Michael Hall are celebrating breeding Group 1000 Guineas winner Aloysia at Caulfield on Saturday. By Azamore out of their Group 2 Matamata Breeders' Stakes placed perfectly ready mare Queen Boudica, Aloysia began her career with 2 starts out of Jason Price's Matamata stable before she was sold to Terry Henderson's OTI Racing through Kiwi bloodstock agent Phil Cataldo. In Sydney, the Whakanui stud bred Savabeel 3-year-old Sava Heat was successful in the listed Hillsmith Stakes, while closer to home the Sir Peter Vella bred and race Cote d'Or claimed listed success in the Team Whelan's Matamata Cup. Further south, the Raffles Dancers bred Frank Aletta claimed the Group 3 Ritual Stud Taranaki Breeders' Stakes for trainers Murray Baker and Andrew Forsman, owner Lib Patania and jockey Michael Coleman. Curramore has celebrated Group 1 success through the Caracas-sold Caulfield Guineas winner Mighty Boss. On a more sombre note, former Cambridge stud shuttle stallion Cape Cross died this week. We leave Kiwi Bred News this week with a look at the foals of Mapperley stud sire Contribute.